Have you ever wondered, why are there days when you're full of energy, ready to change the world, and then just a few days later, you don't want to do anything, not even the things you once promised yourself you would do? I've seen that happen to thousands of people and to myself too. We all start with motivation, but we quit when the fire fades, because motivation is like the wind. It comes quickly bringing excitement, but it also leaves without warning. If you only wait for the wind to blow, you'll stay stuck on the sea forever. But if you know how to raise your sail, you can still move forward even when the breeze is light. And that's the difference between those who start and those who finish. Those who rely on motivation need to be reminded. Those who live by structure don't need to remember because the system remembers for them. I once said, don't look for inspiration to act, act to create inspiration. Because when you have structure, you don't need to wait for excitement. You just follow your plan, and each step you take generates new motivation. In today's video, I'll share with you 7 principles to help you build a solid structure so you can not only start, but also go far and stay consistent, even when motivation fades. And you should stay until the end of the video, because principle number 7 will make you rethink the entire way you manage your life. And to begin, let's talk about the most important thing, why you can't rely on inspiration to go far. Principle number 1, don't rely on inspiration, rely on systems. I once met a young man full of enthusiasm. He came to me after a seminar, eyes shining, and said, "Coach Jim, from today I'm going to change. I'll wake up early, exercise, learn new skills. I'll do everything better." I smiled and asked, "How many times have you said that?" Before he hesitated, then laughed awkwardly, maybe more than 10 times. I said, "Then you don't need more motivation, you need a system." You see, inspiration flares up easily, but it also fades just as easily. It's like a fire made of paper, bright but short-lived. A system, on the other hand, is like a bed of coals. It burns slowly, steadily, and keeps the heat for a long time. Successful people don't wake up every morning waiting for inspiration. They wake up because they have a clear structure for their day. They know what they're going to do, when they'll do it, and why. When you have a system, you don't have to make decisions every day. You don't have to ask yourself, should I do this today? Because the answer is already programmed into your structure, and that's the secret of consistency. I once said, motivation gets you started, but habit keeps you going. A system is the home of habit. It saves you from fighting your emotions every day. It makes discipline feel natural, like breathing. If you want to build a stable, growing life, don't ask, how can I get more inspiration? Ask, how can I create a system that keeps working even when I'm not inspired? Because once you have a system, the next step is learning how to turn your daily repetitions into rituals, not burdens. And that's principle number 2. Principle number 2, turn repetition into ritual. I once told my students, your life is determined by what you repeat every day, not by what you do once. But the problem is, most people hate repetition. They crave new feelings, new experiences, new results. But they forget that every great achievement is born from boring work. A musician can't master their craft without repeating the same exercise hundreds of times. An athlete can't win without running the same route every morning. And an entrepreneur can't succeed without doing the small, unseen tasks every day, even when no one applauds them. I remember once, a friend of mine complained, "Jim, I'm bored. Every day I do the same things." I said, "Then why don't you turn them into rituals instead of obligations? When you see your morning reading as a ritual of beginning, when you treat your end-of-day journaling as a ritual of gratitude, every repetition gains new meaning. You no longer force yourself to do it, you choose to do it because it's how you show respect for yourself. Imagine each disciplined action as a brick. You lay one down every day, and one day you'll stand inside the house you built, made from those patient, consistent rituals. That's the difference between successful people and those who are only briefly motivated. Successful people honor repetition because they understand ritual is the art of discipline. And for those rituals to truly have power, you need a blueprint for your day. Without architecture, rituals are just scattered pieces. That's why we move to principle number 3. Principle number 3, design your schedule like the architect of your life. I once asked a young student, "How is your day designed?" He laughed and said, "Coach, I don't know. I just go with the flow." I said, "That's exactly the problem. If you don't design the schedule for your life, someone else will hire you to help them build theirs." Successful people don't live by it. Let's see what happens. They design their days like architects. Because they understand if you want to build a strong building, you need blueprints. No one builds a castle by intuition. I always begin each evening with a small ritual writing down the 3 most important things for the next day. Not 30, just 3. Because success doesn't come from doing a lot, but from doing the right things with focus. Your schedule is the wall that protects your focus. It keeps you from being swept away by moods or whims. It reminds you, this is what I've chosen, not what I happen to feel like doing. I remember a business friend, he always finished work exactly at 6 p.m., no matter how inspired he felt. I asked him why. He said, because if I break my structure once, I'll have to work twice as hard to rebuild it. That answer left me silent, because I realized the person who protects their structure controls their life. A schedule doesn't kill freedom, it protects it. Because if you don't control your time, someone else will. Remember this, the day you don't plan is the day you hand control over to chaos. Don't wake up not knowing where you're going. Be the architect of your own life. But even when you've built the perfect blueprint, there will be days when you don't feel inspired to keep going, days when everything feels heavy and slow. And in those moments, structure becomes your guide. Let's move on to principle number 4. Principle number 4, when inspiration fades, let structure lead. I remember one morning many years ago. It was cold gray and I didn't want to get out of bed. My schedule said 5:00, wake up. 5:30, write. 6:30, exercise. But I just lay there staring at the ceiling, asking myself, can I skip today? Then I suddenly remembered something I once told my students: when emotions are weak, let structure lead. I got up not because I was motivated, but because I was committed to my structure. And after just 10 minutes of writing, I felt alive again. Inspiration isn't what you need to start. It's the reward you earn after you start. You can't wait for the feeling to act. You must act first so the feeling can follow. It's like GPS in the fog. You can't see the road clearly, but you still move forward because you trust that the map knows the way better than your emotion. Structure is that map. It reminds you, whether it's sunny or rainy, happy or sad, you keep going, because only consistent steps take you where you want to go. I've coached many talented people who failed simply because they waited for inspiration before taking action. Meanwhile, ordinary people went farther because they acted even when they didn't feel like it. Success doesn't require perfection. It only requires that you show up every day and let structure lead when your mind wants to quit. And if these principles are truly resonating with you, pause for a moment, because I have something to say to you, not about success, but about the journey you and I are walking together. If these lessons truly speak to your heart, hit subscribe to continue this journey with me, where we don't just talk about motivation, but build the structure that helps you go far and stay consistent every day. And if you believe that discipline is freedom, leave a comment saying, I'm still going. Because when you write it down, you strengthen your commitment to yourself. Now let's go deeper. When you already have structure and know how to act, even without inspiration, it's time to learn how to measure your journey, because if you never look back, you'll never know how far you've come. And that's principle number 5. Principle number 5, track your progress, no matter how small. I once had a student named Sarah. She was one of the most hardworking people I've ever met. She studied every day, read books, journaled, and exercised consistently. But one day she came to me, her face full of disappointment. She said, Coach, I'm doing so much, but I don't see any progress. I asked Sarah, have you been recording what you've accomplished? She shook her head. I smiled and said, that's why you don't see your progress. Not because you're not growing, but because you're not looking back at your own journey. You see, the human mind is strange. It always focuses on what hasn't been achieved and often ignores the small steps we've already taken. But it's those small steps that build lasting success. I always carry a small notebook. Every day I write down 3 things I accomplished, no matter how small. Sometimes it's just wrote 2 pages or walk for 20 minutes, but I still record it. Because when you acknowledge your progress, you're telling yourself, I'm on the right path. And that gives you the energy to keep going. Success doesn't come from one giant leap. It comes from thousands of small steps, each one noticed, each one appreciated. It's like climbing a mountain. If you only look at the peak, you'll feel discouraged. But if you look back and see how far you've come, you'll find new strength to move forward. I once said, don't measure success by distance left, to go measure it by distance already covered. So don't underestimate small progress. It's the fuel of belief. If you don't record it, you'll feel stuck. If you do, you'll see yourself climbing higher each day. And once you've learned how to acknowledge your progress, the next step is to simplify your life. Because the more complicated things are, the easier it is to give up. Let's move to principle number 6. Principle number 6, set simple rules for a complex life. Once after a talk, a young entrepreneur came to me. He said, Coach Jim, I feel like I'm drowning in hundreds of things to do every day. I have plans and goals, but I can't keep up. I asked, how many rules do you have for your life? He said, I'm not sure, maybe more than 20. I smiled, and that's exactly why you're struggling. Life doesn't need many rules. It just needs a few right ones. You see, complexity kills discipline. The more choices you have, the easier it is to procrastinate. The more goals you have, the more lost you feel. Successful people don't live by dozens of rules. They live by a few unshakable principles and follow them until they become second nature. I have one rule I've kept for decades: never let a day go by without learning something new. A simple rule, but it has shaped my entire life. When you have clear rules, you don't have to make endless decisions. You don't wake up every morning debating with yourself because the rules decide for you. For example, you could set these: no touching my phone before 9 a.m., write 3 lines of gratitude every night, exercise at least 10 minutes every day. Simple but powerful. It's that simplicity that makes your structure sustainable. Discipline isn't a cage, it's freedom with direction, because those without rules are ruled by their emotions, and those with rules master their emotions. I once said success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. The more complex life becomes, the more clarity you need, and rules are the rails that keep your train on track. But there's still a deeper level of structure, not just external rules or schedules, but the structure within your mind. Because if your mind is chaotic, no matter how perfect your plan is, you'll still lose your way. That's principle number 7. Principle number 7, build mental structure, not just time structure. I once coached a group of young leaders. They all had perfect schedules plans, detailed by the hour, day, and month. But after a few weeks, they came to me saying, Coach Jim, we still feel exhausted and scattered. We're disciplined, but not at peace. I asked, you've built a structure for your time, but have you ever thought about building one for your mind? Because you can manage your schedule, but if your mind is in chaos, everything outside will eventually collapse. True structure begins within. It's your beliefs, your values, your inner conversations. If your inner world has no order, every external plan is just paint over cracked walls. I went through a phase like that myself. My schedule was perfect, yet I still felt empty and drained. Then I realized I had forgotten to build a spiritual foundation, the thing that holds all other structures steady. And I began with 3 things. 1, 10 minutes of silence every morning. Do nothing, just breathe and observe your thoughts. 2, write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. When you appreciate the present, you regain control of your mind. Try. Limit negative input. Don't let news or social media drown out your focus. When I did that, I felt a clear shift. My schedule stopped feeling like an obligation. It became a natural flow. I no longer had to force myself because a calm mind had become the foundation of my discipline. Like a lighthouse in a storm, mental structure keeps you steady when everything around you shakes. It gives you peace amid chaos and steadiness amid change. And that's what I want you to understand most deeply. Because motivation can start you off, but only structure, both internal and external, will take you all the way. Now let's bring this journey to a close, to remind you of the most important thing we've discovered. You see, motivation gets you started, but structure keeps you going. Because life doesn't reward the most excited, it rewards the most consistent. If you want to change your life, don't ask, how can I get more motivation? Ask, how can I build a structure that keeps me moving, even when I don't feel like it? Motivation is the spark. Structure is the fuel. The spark may fade, but the fuel keeps burning, carrying you through the coldest days of your journey. Each principle you've heard today is not just advice, it's a blueprint for life. If you follow it, you'll no longer depend on fleeting emotions. You'll live from a stable foundation where every day has purpose, meaning, and progress. I once said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. And what does it mean to be better? It means having structure, knowing what you'll do, believing in what matters, and taking action even when your emotions say, stop. So today, if you're truly serious about your life, comment below, I choose structure. Because when you write it down, you're not just telling me, you're declaring to yourself that you're ready. If you found this video valuable, hit like to share it forward, subscribe to continue the journey with me, and share it so someone else can find the structure that helps them go farther. Finally, I want to leave you with one image. Don't wait for the wind to blow, raise your sail and start rowing, because the wind only helps those who are ready, and you, the one with structure, will never be left behind. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Jim Rohn